bin live. Ich lese aus Lord of the Horizon. I don't know why I spoke German there. Very strange. I've just been in touch with somebody German. So this is English. Lord of the Horizon. It is the story of Ra-Ab. We've met him in the Eyes of Horus, where the Eyes of Horus defeated Set. We are now, Ra-Ab is here grown up. He has 3 children. And this is chapter 9 of the second part, Fear in the Marshes. Fear in the Marshes. I had promised the children, including Neri, who was staying with us, that I would take them down to the marshes at dawn, so that they could show me their progress with a throwing stick. But I found only Amenemhet and Senusert waiting for me in the courtyard. Where's Neri? Isn't she coming with us? He decided he didn't want to come, said Amenemhet. He's gone off somewhere with Beckett and asked me to tell you. But I thought they were both coming. He doesn't really like wild fowling, said Senusert. He has always pretended he does, because he thought it was necessary for a Normag to be good at that kind of thing. Beckett only used to come with us because she doesn't like to be left out. She told Neri last night that she hated to see birds killed. He looked surprised and then admitted that he didn't like it either. They decided that they didn't mind killing crocodiles. Beckett, of course, added, except special crocodiles, because she hadn't forgotten the one she used to keep in the pool. Then she said she couldn't come to the marshes because she had heard that a cow belonging to one of the farmers on the western boundary of the estate was ill, and she wanted to go find out what was the matter with it. Neri said at once that he'd go with her. Either he is as interested in animals as she is, or else Beckett is growing up. I realized that Beckett was growing up. Kias, at this time of the Blue Death, had been the same age as Beckett was now. Then it had taken Sebek to show me that my sister was no longer a child, and now Neri was playing a similar role. Amenemhet had already spent 2 seasons at the house of the captains, and I decided that Senusert should join him there after the inundation. While we were walking down to the marshes, I thought it a good opportunity to mention the further plans for him, which Mary and I had discussed the previous day. Senusert, I said, I have thought of yet another way by which you may be trained to fulfill the obligations of one of the Eyes of Horus. You are often present while I give audience, and are already showing remarkable ability in the judgment of petitioners. But accurate judgment can only be gained by experience, and because of the great part you will have to play, which will of necessity cut you off from intimate contact with the common people, I want you to learn as much of their hearts as possible before you become co-ruler. It is not sufficient to know of their way of life only through your mind. You must, in some degree, share their experience, know the conditions under which they work, understand their hardships and their pleasures. On a royal progress, even though your people know that they may bring their difficulties to you as they would to a near kinsman, you will always be separated from them by the difference of rank. Therefore, I have decided that you shall spend 20 days working as a member of some of the principal castes. You may, for instance, live as a fisherman, a small merchant, a field worker, and a man paying his tribute by labor. You agree with my plan? Think well before you answer, for it will be a hard one to follow. Senusert's eyes shone with excitement. Oh yes, Ra-Ab, of course I do. Royden has often told me about how before the dawn you and Hanuk used to go about Egypt in disguise. He said that is why your gnomes are so happy, because you really know how different kinds of people live, because you made your disguise so convincing that it almost became reality. Can I too go disguised? It wouldn't really be a fair test if they knew I was your kinsman. My heart warmed to hear him say your kinsman instead of the royal heir. Every day he was becoming more a son of the Oryx, and I knew that when the time came for him to return to his father, Mary and I would feel as though our son had gone to live in a distant city. Amenemhet, who had gone ahead of us, came back carrying 2 widgeon and a mallard. You had better stop talking if you want to get any birds, he said. They are coming in fast now. I think something must have been along here and disturbed them, for they are very weary. He crouched and pulled me down beside him. Look, Teal, 7 of them. The birds made a fluid pattern against the morning sky. They may have seen us, for they veered away to the north. I was glad, and realized why Beckett had not wanted to come with us. Amenemhet must have caught my thought, for he said, I'm glad you and Mother decided, as a thank offering for me being saved from the crocodile, not to allow birds to be snared in the Oryx. It is a filthy kind of death, waiting for a danger from which you can't escape. He shuddered and then laughed at himself. It makes me sweat to think of it, even after 3 years. The memory evoked by his words was so vivid that it seemed as though I lived again through that terrible experience. Mary screamed in her sleep, Crocodile, crocodile, Ra-Ab, save him. I can't reach him. The mutt's too strong, I can't run. Ra-Ab, go to Amenemhet, crocodile. I thought she was only having a nightmare, so I took her in my arms and kissed her gently to wake her, saying, Don't be frightened, Mary, you are awake. You are safe with me, don't be frightened, it was only a dream. You called to me and I heard you, and now you are safely back in our room. A shaft of moonlight fell across our bed, and I could see that her eyes were wide open. She stared at me without recognition, then put a hand up to her mouth, and before I could stop her, bit her knuckles to try to stifle a scream. Mary, Mary, you must wake up. You are safe with Ra-Ab, safe. Suddenly there was recognition in her eyes. She knew me, but the terror remained. You will be all right in a moment, I said soothingly. You've had a bad nightmare, but now you're awake. She began to tremble, and her teeth shattered so violently that she could hardly form her words. It wasn't a nightmare, it was a true dream. Amenemhet is in terrible danger. Not a dream danger, it's happening down here. I've got to remember where he is, or we shan't reach him in time. She covered her eyes with her hands, and her body grew rigid. Crocodiles. I couldn't get to him because of the mud. He's struggling to get away, but he can't move. He's shouting for you, but nobody can hear him. It must be somewhere in the marshes. Where, Mary? Where? I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, Ra-Ab, I can't remember. I know there was something. Frantically, I implored Anubis to help her to remember. It's beside the river. A little further along, the bank curves out, and there are some things sticking out of the water. I think they're stakes. Yes, I can see better now. There's a tree on the bank, a white, dead tree. It's all right, Mary. I know there is a sycamore that was struck by lightning, and the stakes belong to an old fish trap. I can get there in less than an hour. I thrust my feet into a pair of sandals and fastened my kilt as I ran down the passage to Amenemhet's room. I still had a desperate hope that Mary's dream had been only a nightmare. I knew how violently I had clung to this hope when I received the shock of seeing his room empty. I ran into the outer courtyard shouting for the guards to join me. I sent one of them to fetch javelins, another to tell the physician to follow us and to bring litter bearers with him. Then I set off, running harder than I had ever run, before the soldiers pounding along the path behind me. Should I take the path to the river and then follow the bank, or risk the shorter way by which I might get lost in the reeds? The game tracks were narrow and winding, and there was only the moon to guide me. I decided to take the shorter way and shouted to one of the men to stay where the path forked, to lead the physician and the others with him by the longer but much surer path. Sometimes the dead reeds underfoot gave a firm surface on which to run. Then would come patches of soft mud which slowed us down. It was as though at each step I had to drag my feet from the hand of a giant who clutched at them. The water was black as basalt, and in some places the reeds were so high that I could only see a narrow strip of sky above me, and I had to follow the twisting tracks blindly until an opening let me take a fresh bearing from the moon. When I knew I must be getting near the river, I shouted, "Ameni, Ameni, where are you?" Then I paused to listen for an answer above the deafening clamour of my heart. The third time I thought I heard an answering cry, ahead of me and to the right. I plunged on, thrusting my way between reeds, which seemed to claw at me like demon cats. Suddenly I crashed through the last of them and reached the riverbank. "Ameni, Ameni, where are you?" "Here." I recognized his voice. The surge of relief was so intense that it was an almost physical pain. "It's all right, Ameni." Above the sound of my running feet I heard quickly. I saw the dead tree livid in the moonlight. Below it the bank was steep as a cliff. Until I reached the edge of it, the mud flat below was hidden from me. Then I stared down at the scene so terrible that I knew why Mary had awakened screaming. Ameni was lying head downwards, sprawled on his back. His foot was caught in something and his hair just brushed the mud at the foot of the bank. He was staring at a crocodile whose mouth was opening to crush his head between his jaws. There was only one way to save my son. I must hurl my javelin into that open mouth. Time seemed to stand still. Slowly, very slowly, the jaw widened. In the brilliant moonlight I could see the toes of the crocodile's forefeet flex as it slid forward. Slowly, so very slowly. My hand came back level with the ear, weight on the right foot. Swing the body smoothly. The spear must be won with the arm. I could almost hear the voice of the master of javelins. "One day your life may depend on your skill with a throwing spear. One day you'll thank me for making you work so hard. So much more than my life depended on it now. Forward smoothly, the hand must be won with a spear." I saw the haft jutting out of the open mouth. The crocodile reared up and slipped sideways. The threshing tail flashed past Ameni's head. In its struggles it had turned over on its back. I crouched on the top of the bank. The bank is about 10 cubits high and the light is bad. I jumped to land astride the belly of the monster. I thrust my hunting knife deep into its throat and dragged on the handle. Slowly, the thick skin slid open. Blood spurted over me. I stood up, feeling suddenly faint. The soldiers had arrived. One of them was holding Ameni in his arms. Ameni was saying, "You needn't hold me, I'm all right. I was setting a snare for a winter rat. I wanted to give one to Beckett. Then I slipped and fell head first down the bank, which wouldn't have mattered, but my foot caught in part of the snare. I had made it so well that it wouldn't break. I managed to pull myself up by a bush, but it came out by the roots before I could get my foot out of the loop. I walked a little way along the bank to find a pool where I could wash. I stank of the filth from the crocodile's belly and retched before I could get my body clean. The physician said that Ameni's ankle was not broken but badly sprained. Ameni protested that he was all right and could easily walk home, so I pretended that the litter had been brought for me and asked him to share it so that he could tell me about his adventure. "It was very lucky you heard me shouting," he said. "Somehow I knew you'd hear, though I kept on telling myself that I was much too far from the house for it to be any use shouting to you. I think I must have fainted or something silly, a little while before you came. It was when I first realized it wasn't a log but a crocodile that was moving very slowly towards me. I thought I could see Mother. She was running to me, and then she sank up to her knees in mud and couldn't come any further. I could hear her crying out, "I'm coming, Ameni. Don't be frightened. Ra-Ab will come to save you." Then she disappeared and I realized I had only imagined her. It was queer though, for the crocodile was crawling towards me, and suddenly 2 large birds aligned on its back and stood there, screeching and flapping their wings. It tried to snap at them, but they kept just out of reach. They circled round and round above its head. Then it turned and lumbered off towards the river, and I thought it had gone. It came back again, but the second time it wasn't nearly so bad, because as soon as I saw it come out of the water, I heard you shouting to me. The first shout, not the second. What kind of birds were they? I don't know. That's the odd part about it. They were very large, about as big as pelicans, but more the shape of heron. I think they must have been white, for they seemed to shine in a funny sort of way. I suppose it was the moonlight. Do you think they were magic birds, Father? I'm not sure, Ameni, but I rather think they must have been. So do I, he said drowsily. He leaned back against my shoulder and I felt his tense body begin to relax. Before he fell asleep, he said, I hope they were magic birds. It's very comforting to have magic looking after you. Do you think I'll dream about the crocodile if I go to sleep? No, you won't dream about it. The same magic which sent the birds to protect you will let you have only the best kind of dream adventures. So that was the end of chapter 9. Chapter 10 is Royal Tomb. Today is Thursday, the 4th of April.